A 28-year-old trans woman kills 6 people, including 3 children, at a Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee. Yet it's the trans community that the media and the White House came out in solidarity with. Also, a Manhattan grand jury indicted former President Trump. The prosecution is led by Soros-backed District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who's also known for being soft on crime. Meanwhile, DeSantis says Florida will not assist in the extradition. All of this and next on the Speak for Yourself podcast. Welcome to the Speak for Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Casey, and tonight we have with us TopLobsta and Zach. Top, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, guys? Great to be here with you guys. It's been a couple of weeks that we've been planning it, but I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for it. Zach, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I've got a 2-month-old in the other room, so we'll see how this goes.
Zach's going to be whispering the whole time and just on pins and needles. I feel you, man.
Yeah, I have a 17-month-old, and we put him down at 7:30, but he sleeps like a rock. We have kind of the white noise thing going, so
must be nice.
We're good.
my wife's in the other room right now reading to both of my kids because usually we'll split the responsibilities. But I was like, listen, I'm going on a podcast. Could you give me the day off? So I'm here chilling with you guys. This is it's awesome. I'm on vacation.
The same realm though, dealing with the kiddos. It's funny.
Yeah.
And Zach, is this your first or second?
It's my second, man. So gotcha. I didn't wise up and went and had another one.
Yeah. Oh boy.
How many do you have, Top?
Two as well. I got a boy and
Gotcha.
A girl, and that's
Gotcha.
I think it's gonna stay like that because I'm dying, man. I'm dying over here.
I feel you, man. I think we're probably gonna wait a year, and I'm not sure if we're looking at adoption as well. So we'll see what that holds for us, but it'll probably be about a year before we do anything. So.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of people they give you advice like don't have them too far apart because then it'll be like, starting over. I guess that's true, but when you have them like close together at the same age, it's just chaos for like we're sort of getting out of it now. Like my son just turned 3, so we're kind of like getting to a point where he's being a little more reasonable.
Yeah.
And, like we can negotiate, but before that it was just like straight up terrorist tactics for like 4 years straight.
Were the 2s as every bit as bad as they say? Or is it not as bad?
It's been bad the whole way through. They're great. They're great.
Yeah.
They're just they're kids. They're crazy, man. So they're gonna do what kids do. But whatever. We're blessed. We're blessed to have kids. So yeah, it's all jokes.
How old is your oldest, Zach?
He's 2.5. He'll be 3 in October. So the 2s are just about as bad as they say it is. It depends on the day, man. Like there's really good days where he's like, I love you, Daddy. I love you. And there's others where he's just a little emotional terrorist.
Yeah, there's other days where I'm like, let me call Casey because I'm thinking about adoption actually.
Well, guys, before we get into some of the current events that have happened this week, I'd like to hear, because both of you are libertarian or libertarian adjacent. So I'd kind of like to hear your personal journey to how you got there. Top, do you want to start?
Yeah. Man, it's funny. Every time I come on a show and somebody asks me this, I'm like surprised that they asked. So I guess I'm like a Spanish guy from Brooklyn, and like default setting would be like a Democrat. Like, but really it's like apolitical. But everybody from like New York or Brooklyn would kind of lean left. Then I don't know. I guess maybe like my upbringing through like I played college baseball, and that's very like it's very like responsibility oriented, and that kind of I think that oriented me to be more right leaning, where it teaches you like responsibility and things like this. Then the Trump movement happened, 2015. I wasn't really interested in politics, but I saw something weird going on, so I started to pay attention a little bit more. And like I remember one of the big shifting points was that debate with him and Hillary. And I was kind of like, okay, I see like there's 2 sides here. And I see that, my friends and family are kind of like galvanizing to one side or the other. Trump was a polarizing figure for sure. So I kind of like started to lean right. I tried that on like with this conservatism. It fit for a while until you figure out a little bit more about like, other ideas that are going on out there. But I explored, the Ben Shapiro types. Jordan Peterson was a big one, which is where I get my name from. And then I heard Dave Smith on Joe Rogan. And I remember I was initially going to skip the episode because I think it was a clip from YouTube when he was back on YouTube still. And he was talking like from what it appeared to me from like a left-leaning standpoint, because libertarianism it has the best of the left and the best of the right kind of like meshed into one. So my initial reaction as like I thought I was a conservative back then was to like skip it and call him gay. But I said, you know what? Yeah, I was like the IDW. They were like, oh, we have to hear each other's arguments. So I was like, I'm going to hear his argument, and I heard his argument. I don't even remember what it was, but after I heard it, I was like, God damn it, he changed my mind, and now I have to figure out what he's doing there. So that was like probably 4 or 5 years ago. I lost track of time after COVID. Yeah, probably something like that. Maybe even 6 years ago. And after that, I kind of delved down into like the regular libertarian path of reading Mises, Rothbard, Hayek, all the greats. Then you get into like Michael Malice's books and all these kind of things like that. Studying that, not mastering, of course, because I'm an idiot, but I studied it. I'm fairly familiar with Austrian economics and very familiar with a lot of the theory. And I kind of tried that on. And now I'm in a phase of my libertarianism where I guess I'm kind of like not moving away from libertarianism, but kind of like free form jazzing it myself, where I'm like, I don't really like some of these things don't work in theory. They don't work in practice. In theory, they sound great, but COVID kind of changed a lot of that for me. So yeah, I don't know. I'm right now I'm in a weird phase of seeing things and kind of seeing I'm more interested in what works now. So you'll see a lot of my Twitters throwing shit at the wall and a lot of brash stuff and see where things land, because I'm still learning and figuring stuff out. But that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's fair enough. Are you kind of testing the waters with some of those tweets, like the reaction that you get from people?
All the time. Yeah, my latest one was it's very interesting to see like throughout COVID, I saw a lot of the people that I had respect for fall to the wayside and kind of get fooled by a larger psyop or fooled by like being scared by something. So I kind of like to throw out these like weird feelers and see where my audience is at the time, and then I'll gauge from there. Most of this stuff is shit posty, but I kind of want to see how people react to it, because that's the most important. That, in my opinion, it's the most important thing to what's happening in our society. The theory comes second. How people are actually forming around it is pretty important. So I do like to poke the bear a little bit and have a little bit of fun. People get mad at me, but I don't give a fuck. I just yeah.
Zach, how about you?
Man, I'm old school libertarian, dude. 2010, man. It's kind of when it started for me. Sorry if I sound kind of rough, man. Everybody in our house is getting sick too. It's great, dude. Those kids are like little petri dishes. But
oh yeah.
Anyway, man. So you went to Lubbock High School?
I did.
Dude, yep. I did too.
Graduated in 08.
Yeah, I graduated in 12, so you were there right before me. Both on drumline though, so that was tight. And, yeah, I played tenors. I don't know if you even knew that, bro.
No, I did not.
yeah. I remember looking up to like BJ Holmes and all those cats. And I'm like, oh man, they're gods.
Well, he continued with his percussion. I don't know what you call it, but
he just got his PhD
career, I guess. Yeah.
But I'm actually like best friends with his brother.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he and I are still pretty close. But anyway, it all happened on the back of a school bus, dude, going to the ATC. If you remember that place. I had a digital graphics class, and a very good friend of mine, Sheldon Weisner, he kind of opened up the world of libertarianism to me. Not so much the economic side, but more the morals and ethics. And it was fascinating. I thought it was brilliant. It like you kind of said, man, it's the best of both worlds, right? I think the way it was put to me was, keep the government out of your bedroom and your wallet. I was like, okay. it seems like freedom for all. So they set me down that path, and I didn't actually get to vote for Ron Paul in the 2012 election. I was stationed in Camp Pendleton at the time. I just didn't have time. But so yeah, I start going to college and everything. I was majoring in biology, and was like, this is dumb. I hate it. It was annoying. So I've got to pay for it anyway. I'll study what I want. So I ended up getting my degree in philosophy and another one in English, which was both of terribly useless. But the whole time I was there, and I went to Tech, man. I went to Texas Tech, so it was a pretty conservative school. But being in the English philosophy program, you're surrounded by the most left-leaning people, for the most part. There's very few on the right side of the political spectrum. And so I always felt like the odd man out. And every time we'd be having a conversation, especially medical ethics, my professors would just make me feel like a Nazi. And I'm like, I'm not even far right. Like, I just don't think you should kill all these people. So that's kind of where it started. And, after having kids and being married, different jobs, you become more right wing. My dad was right. I hate to admit it, but you become more right wing as you get older. And so I'm kind of like, I voted for Mama Joe in the last election. Would I vote for a libertarian candidate this next election? Man, I don't know. We'll see. I don't even know who's running. That's kind of how.
Yeah, it's still early in the game to decide, I guess.
Well, I mean, I don't know if Dave Smith, if he was going to run, he should have announced probably back when Trump announced and started lining up his campaign. So he didn't. I don't know if he's going to run. I don't think he's going to. And the people who they proposed already, Larry Sharp and someone else, they hosted some kind of debate with 3 libertarians. I don't even know who they are. So there's your answer, I guess.
Larry's held a couple of them.
Yeah. It's strange.
There's like 6 or 7, because there's 2 of them that I know about. One had 3, like you're saying, and the other one either had 3 or 4 candidates. They're all people that I haven't really heard of.
Yeah,
that's how it is with libertarian elections, man. It's always just some random person. You're like, oh, this guy's new. Like, I didn't know who Gary Johnson was, but he was a governor. Shit.
I likely won't vote libertarian unless, Dave Smith runs, which I don't think he's going to run. But my second choice, like out of left field, would be somebody like Clint Russell from Liberty Lockdown. If he runs, he's got my support. Besides that, I don't know. Maybe I'll just watch and see the world burn.
Is that even a possibility with Clint?
I don't know. Why the hell not?
I haven't.
Start talking about it. Yeah, he's single.
I didn't even know he was interested in that.
He's probably not. but he's not. What else is he doing, right?
So peer pressure him into it.
I peer pressure him into worse stuff, to gay sex, stuff like that. We could pressure him into running. He's a great orator, in my opinion, and I think he's probably the second most influential libertarian in this sphere right now. So I don't see the other guys I can't even name. So that would be my choice if you were to run, or if if they were to nominate him or whatever. We'll see how things play out. Who knows?
Yeah, Zach, our relationship's kind of interesting because we lived in the same town, and then around the time that you moved is when we really kind of hit it off and discovered that we were both, libertarian oriented.
It's strange, man.
A friendship kind of formed from that after you had left the town that we're both in.
Yeah, dude. I remember I talked to you at that Christmas party in I think it was 2017. And I was like, man, this dude's really cool. Oh yeah, we went to the same high school. Had a lot of the same interests, music and talked about politics. And I actually had to go kind of early that night. And we found each other on social media. And I started seeing the stuff you were putting on there, and you saw the stuff I was putting on there. I was like, this dude's pretty tight. Like, this guy can hang, right? And
it's like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where they like point at the TV and you're like, oh, hey.
Are you guys both you're both drummers, or you play other instruments?
I started playing drums on drumline and then just the drum set, but after a while I started getting into guitar and writing songs on that, and then learning lead and all that kind of stuff. So I've played in worship bands. I've played in a pop punk band in high school and the start of college. and I tried to do my own thing for a little bit with like Texas country stuff. I put out a single there, and then had like 3 or 4 other songs recorded, but I never got those 3 or 4 mastered. Um, and then I realized it just takes it's like a money pit. It just takes so much money to get it all done professionally, and then even more money to promote it, that sort of thing. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to do it for fun from here on out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I follow the same sort of thing. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, man. I was just saying, I played drums too. I started on drum set. Was the only kid at O.L. Slayton that could play drum set at the time, so they ended up throwing me from trombone and trumpet to percussion, and they kind of followed from that. But then I taught myself how to play guitar, and I sang. And so I kind of just naturally, being in like the Christian atmosphere too, fell into the worship scene. And so I led worship at a church for the youth group for 6 years. I played, with other churches and stuff like that.
Was that with our mutual friend Brian?
Yes, with B. Gillespie. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah, I forgot you know Brian. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
about you, Top?
Yeah, actually a similar path. Yeah. So I started to learn guitar. I just like picked it up one day. My grandfather left me a classical acoustic, and no idea how to play. Started playing. Asked my uncle. He taught me some chords, and then I was like, I fell in love with it. And I actually met my wife playing at the church that we went to. I was like, I don't know what my like role there was, but I was like the guy that kind of broke down and put together all of the equipment and like had the setup. And then I also ended up orchestrating the band because we had a piano, bass, violin. We had a trumpet at some point, and we had a couple other instruments. So like they had, like when you got a lot of people playing, you got to have like the fake sheets for the guitar. We have to have the sheet music for the piano, and then I think it was like B flat. Like I had to transpose for the trumpet and all this. So then I got my licks in there, and I ended up going to college and minoring in music. So I was like,
oh sweet.
Yeah, started to get like a little obsessed with it, but I haven't played in like in a band setting in many years now. I bought a brand new guitar the other day, and I was like, I
saw it.
played
It's
some.
sick.
Yeah, it's a great guitar. I played some chords on it. And I was like, I don't even know why I bought this thing, but now I gotta like, maybe I'll get back into it a little bit and show my kids some more. Yeah.
Well, it's funny how a new guitar or a new instrument or amp or whatever, new pedal can kind of reinvigorate that drive in you to learn and kind of like spend time doing it.
Yeah, it gives you gas, right? What is it called?
Yeah.
Like guitar accessory syndrome or something like that. So now I got to be careful that I don't start spending crazy money. But yeah, I think I'm gonna run it. I have a Reaper on this computer, and I have a audio interface. So I'm probably just gonna run it through the computer and through like some PA system speakers or something like that, and mess around with whatever kind of plugins I have, because I'm not buying another amplifier. Not going that crazy.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's funny how you kind of are able to bypass that nowadays and just go straight into the computer, especially if you already have like podcast equipment.
I was doing that when I was playing for the church. I was doing that, man. So that was like probably more than 10 years ago. I had the Axe Effects. I don't know if you guys remember this thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it was like a real big. It belonged in a board, and I had it hooked up to like a Voodoo Labs like 16 patch foot pedal when I was playing in the church, and that thing was nice for what it was, but it was like $2,000, and all this stuff that I have now probably sounds better. I have more plugins, I have more amps and stacks and all this stuff, and it's basically free because I downloaded it illegally. But it's just amazing how far we've come, like technology wise, where I don't have to worry about a tube amp or playing through a line 6 or some garbage like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny because I had a hand-wired AC30, and I don't know if you ever heard those, but they are loud at low volumes. Like there is no low volume. And if you do have it on low, since it's a tube amp, you don't get really good tone out of it. So the church, I think the drummer at the church that I played at actually built an isolation box for it. And so you could crank it on stage and close the top on it, and then you wouldn't you wouldn't have any stage volume from it. Just coming through the headphones, and it was awesome.
Nice. Yeah, that was the biggest like headache with the church, because like the drum set we had kind of in the middle, and I ended up convincing them to buy like one of those plexiglass shields, and we ended up like miking the stuff. I mean, we had enough mics basically for the kick, and maybe just like one over everything, so it wasn't like the ideal setup, but it was just way too loud acoustic. Like people were getting blown out. You know, if you're if you're like too close to the front, my drum player was like super loud. So that was a fun time. A lot of trial and error with that.
Well, so let's get into a little bit of the current events this week. We started off Monday with the school shooting in Nashville. How do y'all feel about that?
You want to start, man?
At first I just feel kind of numb to it. Like I don't even care because it just happens all the time. But this one kind of bothered me because of just the details of it, with the like finding out that this person knew the pastor at this. It was like a church school kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he or she knew the pastor there and was there specifically. It seems like looking for him, and then murdered his daughter. It's like it's multi-layered. It kind of like aggravated me on different levels. This was also one of the things that I was just telling you about, where I kind of just I'll say like wild stuff to put out feelers and see where people are at. And a lot of libertarians, I kind of do disagree with them here, but I just said maybe trans people shouldn't have guns, and everybody jumped down my throat and said, yeah, see, I see your face, Zach. Everyone's like, oh, you want to make a law? I said, didn't say I want to make a law. I'm just kind of stating the obvious here, where in my opinion, most of these people are clearly crazy. They wear it on their face, or they wear it on their dress, and they're telling you, they show you. And when somebody shows you who they are, I believe them. And I'm like, maybe we should kind of like put some kind of stigma on this, like at least say something rather than encouraging it. Because I was looking at the libertarian side, and they're like, we have to arm the queers. And I was like, all right, let's maybe calm down a little bit. This shooting just happened. Let's take it easy and see where the pieces fall. So it's a fun social experiment to see where people landed on that. Got a lot of weird feedback.
Yeah, it's funny because I knew exactly where you're going with that. And I guess we're going to jump right into it. So my personal feelings are, my baseline is that trans people are mentally ill. And I'm not sorry for saying that. So when I saw your tweet about that, I thought it was interesting. I haven't decided if I agree or not with it, but I do think it's interesting. And obviously I'm not going to tell you anything new. But obviously the reason that you wouldn't do that is because you're afraid that same law, if you made it a law, would be coming back on you or people that are not mentally ill, right? And it would be used as a political weapon against whatever side is not in power at the moment.
And let us not forget, I mean, laws aside, if you want a gun, you're going to get a gun. So it's like, to even argue with me, like, maybe some of my followers are new following me, but I've been in this space for a long time. So I understand the argument for as far as the law side goes. And I'm never going to say that, but I'm also not going to explain myself on Twitter. Fuck you. You know what I mean? So if you're going to what I was saying is just more like, should they own? I mean, it's a good question. Should they own guns? ? Not saying like we should do something about it, but it's like, hey, let's have that conversation out in the ether at least, because it doesn't seem like anyone's talking about that. And this whole thing seemed just kind of crazy to me, to initially take the other side and say like, no, they need to have. I don't think they do. Maybe we should, like, if somebody's mentally ill, like to a point where they can't decipher the reality of their own physical being, maybe they shouldn't have the responsibility of like a small explosive, device in their hand that you can bring anywhere. Maybe let's talk about it. But instead, or you could just jump down my throat and I'll just block you. But it's like, I'm more interested in having like that kind of conversation in the air. And I'm also, I'm not like tied to this idea. It's just something that I said, like most of the other dumb shit that I say. So yeah, I'm willing to have my mind changed and all that, but I do think at the very least we should maybe consider that. No one's even saying that.
And so
Zach, you have anything to
Yeah, I got way too much to add to it.
Let's
Yeah,
hear it.
it's troublesome. Obviously terrible news. It's I will say kudos to the officers. I mean, I watched the footage, man, and they closed with and destroyed, man, very quickly.
Complete
Very
opposite
quickly.
of Uvalde.
Yeah, and I don't know if TopLobsta knows, but I live in a border town, and so Uvalde being so close to the border, you kind of see the different law enforcement agencies, and they just did a fantastic job, you know, ending the threat, and
Yeah,
but
that's
man, it's
as
go ahead.
libertarians, we don't like the cops generally, but when shit goes down, that's what I want you to do. Like I'm sorry to
Mhm.
cut you off, but I'm from New York City. It's giving me flashbacks. It's like, when we're in New York, I don't appreciate being pulled over or being harassed for jaywalking or bullshit like that. But when people are burning down the city, the guys that take my taxpayer money, please do something about it, because that's what you're there for. They didn't. These cops did their job when things were actually happening good on them, you know?
Yeah, dude, and I'm glad you brought up New York. I was there in it was New Year's Eve 2014 going into 2015, and I just remember looking out the window from our motel. We were like right there on what's that, Broadway? What's that place called? Times Square. Like I
Yeah.
was like 2 blocks away from it, and just see them, and it was so militarized, and I was like, screw this, dude. I'm not about this. I don't believe in this. I hate it. And there were cops galore, right? And it's a dangerous place. Bad things happen in those kind of environments. Boston bombing was right before that, and um, but this shooting is so politically charged. Not just it's not like just like Uvalde, right? Some crazy, mentally unstable, unhinged kid, with two brand new, Daniel Defense rifles, all this ammunition, brand new truck. You start getting into those conspiracies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Dude, I'll go down the rabbit
The
hole
wheels
every
start
time.
turning.
10 out of 10, I'm going down that rabbit hole. But it's not just a guns issue. It's now a social issue about not just the acceptance of, should we be allowed to have these firearms? Should trans people have these firearms, right? Should where do we stand just days before this trans rights days, which is today, right? And
Well, I'm confused. Is it Trans Visibility Day or is it Trans Day of Vengeance?
I
I'll
think they
tell you this,
canceled that.
I personally don't give a shit. I don't care.
Well, good on these demons for like having the wherewithal to cancel the Day of Vengeance, but they're doing a Trans Visibility Day, which obviously none of it's all bullshit, but at least like they weren't brazen enough to just run with that as the theme of the day, even though the president and everyone else is kind of coming out in this odd like pro trans. It's like this just happened and they're saying like, well, the trans community is under attack from
they're
like the White House
marginalized.
Twitter. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild to see. But
Yeah. But
you
then
kind
you
of
say,
good.
I was just going to say, but then you say, what about a 6-year-old or a 9-year-old Christian kid at a school who goes and gets shot by them? Are they part of a marginalized group? And, so the minute you start talking about this situation, regardless of what side of the political spectrum, up, down, left, right, doesn't matter. You're hated by one, you're beloved by the others, and you're just an asshole to everyone else. And so it just doesn't matter. Like your thoughts, you're not going to change anybody's mind. It's so emotionally charged, politically charged, and it's just bullshit is what it comes down to. And people are pissed, and they don't even know what they're pissed about.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I think I am bothered most by A, the White House's response, and B, legacy media's response to this, right? So instead of being in solidarity with the 6 Christians that were killed and the 3 children out of that 6, there's no mention of that, especially from the White House. I don't think I've heard one thing from them all week. And they're standing in solidarity with the trans community now because they're allegedly under attack. It's wildly tone deaf.
I mean, you could look at it as if it's tone deaf, or you could look at it as if it's intentional, which to me, the latter seems more plausible. It doesn't, I was like, it's one of those things where no matter how red pilled you get, I must retain some blue pill in me, because you do see this stuff from like the press, White House secretary saying, we're really sympathetic towards the, whatever her name is. And my initial reaction, like your gut reaction is like, what the fuck? But then I'm like, oh yeah, of course you are. I mean, you're here for the downfall of America. You're picking apart every semblance of sanity in the society. It shouldn't surprise me. It still does a little bit, but after like a second of thought, I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, the part that bothers me would be like my friends and family who still like don't see it how I see it, and they'll still watch the mainstream media and see this like this brazen, blatant attack on, in my opinion, it's like a sideways attack on Christianity and just normalcy in general. They can
100%.
see that. Yeah, they'll see that, and they'll be cis male or cis female Christians and still not like understand that these people hate you, they want you dead, but they'll settle for your submission kind of stuff, you know. But Zach, your point before where you were talking about like mental health of like the societal, the social societal issue of mental health with this shooting, my brain, like my conspiracy brain, started working right away towards like MK Ultra and what we know about that, and government influence, and how much government influence is involved in like a lot of these shootings. And like most of the previous shootings, we can go look back and say, well, they were on antipsychotics or big pharma drugs, which probably do correlate to some MK Ultra studies that haven't been released yet. But this one is so blatant and in your face, which is why I'm like, libertarians, like, wake up. I mean, you have the government coming out right after, and they're telling you that they support this movement. It's almost as if they're creating and fostering this movement. Forget about the pills that and the testosterone and the shots and all this crazy shit that they're giving these people. They're also supporting them like verbally from the biggest platform in their world, from the cathedral. So when I see that happen, it's a conundrum for me where I'm like, we're going to arm these people? Like you're okay with arming these people? It almost seems like they're created by the government. Like it almost seems like they're pushing this whole thing, which not almost seems, I mean, if you look at it objectively, they are. So now we're going to say the government creates the problem, and now they want us to argue about like, they want us to argue about gun laws, which is not interested in their solution in gun laws. But I am interested in like just the common man saying like, okay, maybe, just maybe, the people who are creating this issue, which is not really natural. It happens once in a while, transgenderism, sure. It's a thing, and people do have gender dysphoria, but not to this level. There's just way too many people out there. They're creating it actively in schools and society. There was just that video with like Jazz's mother talking about dilating, like forcing him to dilate himself. It's fucking crazy. And it's like, it just feels like from like
that one hurts my heart, man.
That one, me too. And that's why I got to joke about it. I got to say like, I got to put out a snarky tweet about it. Otherwise, like I'll be dead inside, which I already am. But it's hard for me to connect these two things of being like, I guess like a pure libertarian, but then also noticing, hey, they are doing something deeply nefarious here. They're playing with the chemical makeup of people, and it's intentional. And then things like this happen. It's like, we got to think about this. We got to talk about this at least. I'm not interested in the, no offense, I'm not interested in the don't tread on me, like, those taglines of libertarianism. Let's think. We know the theory. It's like I compare it to like when I'm playing guitar, like you learn all the theory. You learn, everything within the key signature, right? We're playing the key of G. We know all the notes. It's only F sharp that you can mess with. But what if I feel like adding a blue note in there? Or what if I feel like adding some chromatic notes to spice it up? You got to know the theory to learn how to break it to make it more interesting. And that's what I always say about libertarianism. But it's like, let's talk about that. Like there's a lot more going on here. And I feel like some of the smarter people, not me, but like the smarter people within libertarianism really should like pick this up and be like, hey, I know it's going to aggravate some people, but what, like there's some shit going on, How do you guys feel about that? My little rant there.
I think you hit the nail on the head, man. I think it's wild over the course of the last 20 years how much traction this has gotten. And I actually got into I hate to say it, a flame war on good old Facebook with some dumbass I went to high school with, right? And you're sitting there thinking like, dude, you cannot be this dense. You cannot just think that this is There's nothing going on here. You're telling
Zach,
me
you need to get on Twitter.
Yeah,
Dude,
don't
I have a Twitter. I have
fight on-
4, and it's been hacked by some Russian 3 times. So only got on there every once in a while.
you can't fight on Facebook because there's no limit to how much somebody can talk back to you. Like it's just, they could just write you a book. You got to bring them to Twitter and kill them with those whatever character length they're in.
Just those one-liners, just boom, 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 boom. Yeah,
That's it. Yeah,
maybe I should.
it's
maybe I should.
either we talk face to face, like kind of how we're doing here, or meet me on Twitter and we can do it a little bit there. But like on Facebook, it's too much. It's too much.
That makes sense why everybody wants to go on Twitter. I'm like, I'm fine with Facebook. Me and all the old people, dude, we're good on there, getting pissed off at the neighbors' kids or whatever. But it's wild to sit there and think, man, if you were to tell me 20 years ago that people would be running around saying, use my damn pronoun, like I'm going to change the English language to fit your narrative. I'm sure, I would assume either one of you have watched Matt Walsh's What is a Woman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Watched it for like the 3rd time because it's fascinating. I just, it's hilarious, and there's some sad truths in that. But you can walk down the street and ask somebody what their pronouns are, and there's a chance, man, that it's not he or she, or a group of people might, identify as a damn gaggle of geese. It doesn't matter anymore, and just throws all reality out the window. And so you're stuck in this conundrum, like, well, man, if I don't adhere to this, I'm the bad guy, but I'm right. You know what I mean? Is it better to be loved or feared, kind of thing? I want people to fear how much they love me. But
I have a real problem with compelled speech, and like, how far does this go? At what point am I required to participate in your delusion? You know what I mean?
Well, shit, man, what happens whenever I get on here on this lovely podcast and I speak my piece about this, and I say, whether or not I agree or don't agree, I haven't even put it out there. Like, you guys both came out the gate, and I was like, oh shit, like, that's what we're going to do tonight, right? We're going to fight, right? But y'all said, you talked about mental illness and trans just like that. But if I put that out there, right, somebody sees me and they dox me, or somebody knows where I live or whatever. Dude, I'm at the point where I'm just like, screw it, find out, and then f around and find out. But it's a wild time, and just in terms of the shooting, to be able to come out and say, man, this person is obviously mentally deranged, whether or not they're trans or not. Just throw that out of the box entirely and say this person's mentally unhinged. Who would disagree with that? Who in their right mind would say this person was in the right state of mind to walk into a church, school affiliation and shoot up a bunch of kids and teachers that love these kids? The person who says, oh yeah, that person's in the right state of mind, they're the asshole. But whenever I say, man, this trans person was mentally unhinged, now I'm a Nazi, right? Now I'm hurting somebody just by using my language. Like, I served for 4.5 years in the Marine Corps Reserve. Actually, 5 years. And I've been called some nasty shit, right? And that was just somebody giving me basic instruction on, like, go move the truck over here. And at the end of it, I hate to use the crude language, but like, you're sitting there typing down notes. You're like, okay, who are we fucking? Because it's just over and over again. So it's just crazy, man. I have my thoughts and opinions on it, and I think every last one of these people need help to some degree, because they're all seeking some sort of belonging. Is what it comes down to, and they don't find acceptance in society. So you take this marginalized group, and you're like, oh man, none of these guys fit in. Shit, maybe I am a she. Maybe I've never felt comfortable in my own body, especially as a 14-year-old kid whose balls just dropped or whatever, and you got some hair on your peaches, and you're trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong, how to stand up in class without having your history book in front of you. Like, you're going to tell me that person can make a logical reasonable decision of having transgender surgery or being put on puberty blockers. It's damn crazy is what it is. But you can't say it. So.
No, you could say it. I say it every fucking day. Yeah.
I want to go back to something you said real quick. You were talking about kind of the consequences of speaking out, whether you get doxxed or maybe you work a corporate job and you have to go see HR about something you said or whatever like that. To me, I don't want to go on too much of a rant about this, but that's why I believe it's imperative that you put yourself in a place of personal sovereignty, for better lack of term, where you're uncancelable, because that puts you in a position where you can speak freely, right? So I think that's something not everybody has instantly, but that's something to keep an eye out for and maybe even work towards in your personal life if you believe in speaking out. That way you're not undermined by the fear of getting fired or canceled or anything like that, you know?
Yeah, that's I try. I'm reluctant to give that same advice to other people, but when I was in New York, I worked for the MTA. It's the state, and I worked my ass off to get out of that. And now I live in Florida on 10 acres, and I own my own company and part of another company. That I mean, if you're going to fire me, you have to convince me to fire me, or you have to convince like Louis J. Gomez and Dave Smith to fire me. And good luck with that. But
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard to just tell people like, go stop being poor, go do. You have to figure it out. You have to start working at something. Yes, I'll give you a kick in the ass. Like, build something that's your own. That way you can speak out, because we need people to tell the truth. Even if I don't agree with you on what you're saying, I want you to say exactly what you're thinking. I don't want to hear some watered down version of like, will this get me in trouble? No, bullshit. That's what got us here. But in order to do that, you got to put yourself in a position, or get yourself in a position where you can do that. And, again, like if I'm talking to people my age, who am I talking to? Talking to like young men who probably have young families and have a job that might be tied to a system somewhere where it is. So yeah, no, be careful. Don't like give up everything, but like start working yesterday on something you're good at. Who knows what the hell it would be. Like I was making t-shirts for some guys at my job and it turned into some crazy shit. But like, just start grinding. So that way we can tell the truth, because, that was like Jordan Peterson's thing. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And that's one of the things that got us in this position. And it's not people lying. It's,
We have some comments coming in. Go
yeah,
ahead,
no,
Tom.
he's right. Yeah. I don't think he's lying. I think, I forgot exactly what I was going to say, but yeah, we just have to just be in a position where we are sovereign and we can say what we mean. And I feel like that's like a masculine thing too. Like, to not beat around the bush. Like, you're hanging out with your boys and you're like, hey, you look fucking fat. You got to go do some laps or something, man. Girls, go do some push-ups. Like, whatever. Girls can't really tell each other that shit, because there's like, there's a lot of feelings involved, but guys can. And if you have some guy friends and he wants to cry about it and not come around, like, see you later, fatty. Come back when you're less fat. And guess what? He'll come back when he's less fat. That's
Well,
like
how
the
you know who your
reality.
true friends are in a male friendship, right?
Yeah, that's why I mess with the Tower Gang guys. They like, even before we were doing the show, like if you're fucking up or something, they're gonna tell you. They'll be like, "Yo, Top, like that was gay. Delete that." Or like, we're talking to Toad. I don't know if you guys watch the show. Like, Toad, you're going over the edge. You need to pull it back a little bit.
Quit gambling.
Quit gambling. Yeah, you degenerate. But yeah, you need someone to kick you in the ass and tell, because that's the truth. That's like the logos. And we need that in a society that's going to function properly. Otherwise, we get whatever the fuck this is.
Yep.
It's funny you bring that up. Oh, sorry. My bad.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
I was just gonna quick little anecdote. So I worked public and private sector and had it like an HR issue twice. Within both of those, I was actually working for CPS at the time, and I don't think the case is still ongoing, but I won't get into it. But there was a person that changed genders like halfway through the case, right? Some parent, and I just refused. I refused. I was like, I'm not going to. That's not how I met them. That's not their biological sex. So they took me off the case essentially and gave it to somebody else. Terrible job, by the way. Hated it. But then actually I was trucking, and we were doing team drivers, and there was a guy I rode with to where we ended up. I think like Shamrock, Texas, like up near Oklahoma Panhandle. And he started going off on some tangent about wanting, like, how he was a cross-dresser, and like sometimes he was into dudes and like identified as a fairy or some shit. And I told him that I didn't want to work with him anymore. and they got pissed. I had to go sit before like the HR police, and it's like, I'm not gonna, I'll quit. Like, I'll quit. They were so short on drivers that wasn't going to be an issue, but I could have lost my job in a sense, just because I didn't want to ride with somebody I just didn't accept kind of what they were into. I just didn't want, like, you don't want to ride around with that. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to sleep in the back, and you're always thinking in the back of your mind, like, I'm going to wake up, go into a Stripes, and this dude's going to have a dress on. Like, it just kind of weirds me out.
That's like libertarianism 101, like voluntary association for whatever reason. I practice that shit on my Twitter for people that I like that just said some dumb shit. I'm like, well, block, make a new account or something. See you later. Yeah, you don't have to be around people you don't like. That as an adult, that's one of the most freeing things. Like I tell my wife this all the time. Is like, I'm at the point in my life where I'll be in a conversation with somebody midway through, and they'll just be, if they start going on about like real bullshit, I'll just get up and leave. And they'll be like, wait, you going? I don't need to be here. I got other things to do. Like, I can do, like, I'm not an NPC. I can choose to do whatever I want at any point in my life. Like, even if I'm at work, like I could just like take the keys out the truck and just park it wherever and leave. You could do that. That's a choice. So yeah, your choice to not be around that dude, whatever. That guy needs to get over it. Like, stop cross-dressing if you want to hang out with Zach, or just get over it. Like, find someone who's cool with it. So yeah.
Yeah, freedom of association.
Yeah, don't apologize. Don't even feel bad for it. It is like, that's like, it's what it is. Like, because if he wasn't comfortable with you, it would, in a heartbeat, he would have done the same thing, and he would have gotten sympathy from, from everybody else. So start making your culture, like, start doing what you're doing, and we'll make the culture the way we want it. Like, imagine if, like, how they all came out in support of they're doing the 7, right? Oh, we had 7 victims, and we had somebody else saying like, well, she would have been a great artist, and all this shit like that. Imagine if we were writing fluff pieces, like, if it was just completely flipped the other way around. I would actually prefer to live in that society where it was like, well, some guy shot up a trans club, but he could have been a very good truck driver. Like, honestly, I'll be honest with you guys. If we lived in that society, that would be preferable. And that's just a little thought experiment for the people listening. But in my opinion,
man, I need to follow you on Twitter. That's what I just found out.
Hell yeah, man. Yep. I'll follow you back. Let's do this shit.
Hey, so I want to go in a little different direction, but it's kind of on the same tangent. All 3 of us are Christian, I think. I think that's a fair statement. And that comment a minute ago said that I don't think you're far off with quote unquote demonic. Do you guys believe that part of this is it has a spiritual component to it? Like spiritual warfare?
Zach, you take it, because if I start, we'll be here for an hour. I don't want to trample you, but go ahead.
And it's so I'm kind of in a weird spot right now. I worked at a Protestant church for 7, almost 8 years, and I've kind of left that. My wife, she won't go with me, but I really want to go to Mass, right? I've got some Catholic friends that are more Catholic than the Pope that have kind of started pushing history and literature at me, and I'm kind of in this weird purgatory, for lack of a better term, of trying to figure out where I'm at with all of that. So, if you were to ask me 4 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, man, the demonic principles coming from, that Southern Baptist, Lubbock, Texas is about as Baptist as it gets. Even if you go to a non-denominational church, they're Baptist. It's just a nice way of saying they're Baptist, and they left another church. That's all it is. But I would definitely say that. So, but it's hard to put it out there for sure, right? Do I think so? Yes, I do. Because I think it just has clear marks of the opposite of the church history, tradition, ideals, those things that we deem right and good, right, by God's word. And so you take this whole incident, right, and you look at all the bad things about it, and it's pretty much the exact opposite of the teachings of Jesus. right? But then you look at it as a whole, right? Where everybody's angry, everybody's upset, and you have to find yourself in that same spot of forgiveness, and it's a tough pill to swallow. So you're like, yeah, you obviously nobody's happy about what happened, right? And when you first hear it, you're like, man, I hate this person. I'm glad they're dead. And you're lying if you say you're not. But then to look at it and be like, man, it sucks. It just sucks all around. So I think there was some demonic roots at play.
That's the part that infuriates me the most, right? So that pastor was actively trying to help this person. I don't know what he was telling him or her when in their little counseling sessions. I mean, listen, the guy could have been like a piece of shit. I don't know, but like it really hurts me to think, like, part of me is like, yeah, these people are hurt, they're broken, we need to help them. But it's like, this guy tried to help them, and like, I'm in a position with my family where it's like, I'm not going to help you and risk like my shit getting messed up. You know, like when I was working in the subway, if somebody like fell or some crazy shit happened in New York City, you just don't go over to like help somebody, because like they could just flip out on you and stab you. I've seen it. So it's like, you know, something's happening over there. That's why you see the videos, people getting their ass whipped or some crazy shit, and people just looking, and then they walk the other way. That's why I can go over there and like completely ruin my life getting involved in whatever shit that you're doing there. But yeah, I don't know. They need help. They do need help. There is a demonic presence going on there. And a quick background on me, on my like Christianity now. I was in the church for a long time, like I said, playing and doing all the inner workings of this stuff. And if you guys played in a church or were involved deeply, you know that like whenever you get involved with something like that, you see like the business side of it, you see like the ugly side. It kind of, as a young man, it turned me off to it turned me off at the time to God and the ideas, like Christian ideas. It was a Pentecostal church, but it doesn't quite matter the denomination. But as I, you know, got older, especially when I had kids, I kind of reconciled that. I guess I was like a little bit angry toward the church, and then that was misdirected toward God. But as I got older, I realized like, no, you know, it's just people. No matter what church you go to, it's going to be run by people, and there's going to be weird shit and ugly stuff going on in there. So I don't really go to church, but the last couple of months, I feel like my belief in God and my relationship with God and Jesus has grown a lot stronger. Just like private study and certain things that things that I'm listening to, you know, I've had like I feel like I've had like a better understanding of what's going on. And today is interesting. I did like a little schizophrenic posting about an issue that I'm kind of interested in lately, which is the Nephilim.
Yeah, go off on that, because I do want to hear about that. But explain, do a background or explain from the beginning of that one.
What the Nephilim are. I mean, you know, if you've been in church, you read, it's like from Genesis. They show up in the book of Enoch, which is kind of like it's non-canonical to the Bible, but it's an interesting book nonetheless. So the Nephilim are they're the product of fallen angels that have mated with the daughters of man, which is what they say. And it's actually really interesting when you start talking about this stuff, because like the basic Christian will look at you like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're crazy. It's like, well, it's actually in your book, the book that you believe, that, you know, you carry with you and stuff. Like, it says it there. And there's a lot more wild stuff in that book, which is like, I used to read the Bible as more of like a parable, like a way to live, right? Where it's like, maybe Jonah didn't get eaten by a whale. Like, but what's the story telling me? You know, what should we take away from it? And that's important. I think that's an important part of the Bible as well. But yeah, the more time goes by, and like the more weird things get in society, as I'm looking around, I'm like, oh my God, like maybe this book is what it says it is. Maybe there was like wild stuff going on. You know, like in Revelations, it says in the end, you'll know it'll be the end times, because it'll be like the times of Noah. And Noah, you know, we know what happened with Noah. God flooded the earth because there was wild stuff going on in the earth back then. And like what I think was a lot of the wild stuff were fallen angels mating with the daughters of man, creating Nephilim and other kind of atrocities like giants, and who the hell knows? Maybe, I mean, like we have cultural references to like dragons and all kinds of other wacky stuff going on from like Mexico to Japan, and these societies were never in contact with each other. So why are they talking about the same stuff all the time? Why is there like giant caves in Peru and also like in North America and Afghanistan? It's hard. Like, you know, people will call me crazy. I don't care. They call me crazy about a lot of stuff, but it's hard for me nowadays to really start to suspend my disbelief in these things, because I think that the world is more interesting than we know. And I think it's about to get a lot more interesting than people are willing to admit or see. But anyway, the idea
back to the Noah's Ark story real quick. The theory as it pertains to the Book of Enoch is that the bloodlines were getting so tainted with Nephilim bloodlines that's actually why he sent the flood. And Noah's bloodline was 100% pure human.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
No, yeah, that's one of the things. One of my other holdups with the Bible, the Old Testament God, where he's like, you know, a much more vicious God, where he's like, he tells the Jews like, go into this city and kill every man, woman, child, and even kill their goats. And I'm like, damn, like that sounds like genocide. But like, what if these people weren't human? What if they were this like Nephilim origin, or this like weird, like perverted race of human? It's very possible. That's how I like to rationalize that part of the Bible in my head, at least, and it seems to make a lot of sense. But yeah, so the Book of Enoch kind of touches on the details of what the fallen angel's goal is, and it is to pervert the bloodline of Christ, or the bloodline of human beings that are created by God, which is so they're trying to like mate and then and have these bloodlines all mixed up. And I think that if you do believe that this is still happening, which I don't think it ever stopped, I do think that it's still continuing, and they're just using different methods. And my like schizophrenic post was like, you know, artificial intelligence seems kind of strange. It seems almost demonic in a way. It seems like they're trying to manifest like this like technological knowledge into some kind of body at some point. I don't know what's going on, but they also do it on other fronts, like through possession. That's something that we do see in today's day and age. And it's like, possession is not necessarily like you know, your head spinning around and you're throwing up vomit and pissing on the floor, like that's kind of like the Hollywood stuff. But I think possession could be just about anything. I think a lot of people are possessed by different vices and stuff like that, whether it be, you know, pornography or gambling or alcoholism and stuff like that, or even some more severe stuff, which could possibly lead to like, you know, gender dysphoria. That it very well could be, if we're looking through things at a spiritual lens, which I know is very unlibertarian to do, there's another like issue that I have with libertarianism. It's like there's an important religious aspect that I feel like a lot of people are missing. If they put those things together with the ideas of libertarianism, they do coincide a lot. Go ahead, Zach. I see you're ready to say something.
I'm glad you brought that circle around like right where I needed it to be, man. One of the big hangups for me at first with libertarianism was my faith and kind of where I was at, especially being young, man, being like 16, 17. But I reconciled libertarianism with my spiritual beliefs, with my biblical beliefs, because I personally think it's impossible to enjoy, to respect, to have my own belief system without the ability for others to have theirs, right? So like, I can't tell you how to think, how to feel. I shouldn't, at least, right? Like I shouldn't be able to do that. And libertarianism kind of, it almost gave me a logical cop out of like, it's the only way. It's the only way this works. Because if I can't enjoy that, or other people can't, or if other people can't enjoy it, why should I be able to, right? And so there's no sort of mutual respect of just having a different set of beliefs, right? Even if it's just freaking out there, right? You're still entitled to it. And I believe some crazy stuff too. I also believe that I'll never forgive Russell Crowe for ruining the entire book of Genesis for me with that abomination of Noah. Every time I've read Genesis from that point, all I can think of is the damn rock monster things. Like,
I got to rewatch that movie, see how it holds up.
It's theologically, I don't know, man. It's I give it a 2 out of 10.
Oh boy. Yeah, but that is an interesting thing with libertarianism as well, where it's like Pete Quinones likes to really touch the third rail on this stuff, where he's kind of went away from his libertarianism as when I found him, what he was doing. But if libertarianism is accepting of all cultures and different ideals, when I don't know, like when people are commies, literal commies, and they're like, we're gonna kill you, is like, I don't think we could be accepting of these people. We need more of a Hoppian ideals in this. If you want this kind of if you want our ideas to flourish, but then that it's all that becomes like maybe segregation, like self-segregating into different communities, and expelling people away from communities. You have that sect of libertarians that are like, oh, well, we can't do that. We have to have a big tent. I don't agree with that. I just don't think. Yeah, it's but then Mises Caucus. How do you grow a party unless you have a big tent? You're right. Yeah, you need the votes, but what are you really getting done here? You just kind of, in my opinion, you're spinning your wheels. I'd like to, if I were to live in a town of libertarians, it would have to be libertarians that think along the lines I do, and then there's other like varying flavors of it where I could communicate, but then. I don't know. Then there's like Josh Eagle, and I was like, get out of here. I could never live next to that dude. He would. It's just like counter to exactly.
I was trying to remember his first name. I knew it was Eagle, but I couldn't remember his first name because I was about to throw that out as well.
Yeah, he's not even the worst. I like to poke fun at him, but like there are so many people who are. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just like it is almost like ideological possession where they have these ideals, but there's no thought about how this would be implemented in real society. There's like no reality attached to it. It's like, do we take them seriously? Like, do I even argue with these people? I feel like arguing is like, we can't even meet in the middle. And like, we can't even meet at a starting point of reality. So where do we start to talk to each other? I don't know.
Well, those people, their cornbread ain't done in the middle. That's what my dad would say. And it's funny because at a certain point within all of that libertarianism, you're talking about like one of your own community, and when you just dissect it, and you get down to that like very, very baseline community, you want to be around people that you agree with, at least to a certain extent, or you can have a conversation with and fix a disagreement. But man, there's at a certain point, there's a moral threshold where you just have to say, we're not going to get along. We're not going to have the same beliefs. You're not going to waver from yours, and that's okay. So I don't know. The big tent, it's hard. It's one of the reasons libertarianism has such a hard time building something big, right? Because across the whole thing, everybody's like, yeah, a small government. That's kind of the libertarian I'm at. I just want a smaller government. I don't want to be spending recklessly, right? I don't really want to get into the weeds about transgenderism because it doesn't really affect me, right? Like other than free speech. Like, I just don't care.
Well, that's the thing, though. I would say the same thing. I care about like obviously reducing the size of government, but when you have a government that is this big to the point where they are creating a transgender movement through their like black operations in their shadow government, with who God knows what they're. I mean, if you really want to get crazy and you start talking about this stuff, like these like Project MK Ultra, like Operation Looking Glass, the stuff that the government is like actually doing, it's not just like pharmaceutically crazy. It's like occult level crazy shit. Mm-hmm. They're doing wild stuff. I'm at the point now where I'm like, I don't even know if I want to talk about policy. I feel like this other stuff has to be addressed. Like the foundation is
nothing more. I would like nothing more to not be involved in the culture war. per se, but we're nearly forced into that position if you have, kind of a strong moral compass.
Yeah.
Well, even with policy, any decisions you have with policy or the beliefs that you have, you're stuck in the culture war, right? Even because it's so black and white, right? In America, like just take abortion for example. I mean, it's one or the other. There's no middle ground. You can't.
And the crazy thing is, we're fighting like obviously we're all in this culture war, or what we think is, but like how Casey was just saying, this might be like a spiritual war. And that's kind of where my mind is going to now. You want to talk about abortion? The Bible says like, don't sacrifice your children unto Moloch. Like, what are we doing? This is exactly what we're doing. It's insanity. Again, at the risk of sounding completely insane, I do think that these people, like the elites, the elite of the elite, whatever they're doing up top is extremely nefarious. I mean, I wouldn't discount child sacrifice, like when we're talking about Epstein Island stuff. Definitely wouldn't discount adrenochrome usage. Who the hell knows how awful it is? But when you see like the stuff that they show you on their face, it's pretty awful. So I could just assume that the rest of it is just as bad, or it's got to be worse. Like, how deep does this go? I mean, this government is filled with Nazis. Like, if we want to actually talk about it, like, do you think they never stopped whatever they were doing? They were doing some weird occult shit in Germany, and we just hired them here and to continue their research. Who knows what's going on?
It's wild that you can throw all of those theories out and buzzwords. They're not buzzwords, but all that stuff out, and I don't even have to bat an eye. Like,
I just literally called them lizard people, and you're like, probably.
Yep, exactly.
Like if Joe Biden just ripped off his face and it was like a lizard skin, you'd be like, yeah, that fits.
So I'm doing a very in-depth study of the end times, and it's literally from like 1975 or 9 or something like that, and it's a whole lecture series, and it's 24-hour long study sessions, or they're actually just the guy's preaching, and it's been recorded sort of thing. So he had 24 Sundays or 24 Wednesday and Sundays where he preached on this. And so naturally I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. But you kind of mentioned that the end times are going to look a lot like the times of Noah. And I think that we're seeing America's decline line up with end time prophecy, as far as everything's going to be flipped morally. There's a verse that says wrongs will be praised and rights will be not praised, or I can't remember what exactly it was.
Literally today, like the White House, literally today. It doesn't, none of it surprises me anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I want to read this verse because I think it's super interesting, and I'm going on a tangent here, or kind of hinting at something here. I think this may only apply to the 7-year tribulation in the end times. So I don't think it's talking about right now, but it could be talking about right now. So this is 2 Thessalonians 2:11. It says, therefore God sends them a strong delusion so that they may believe what is false. And I believe that's talking about after the rapture, the people that are left on the earth. And so, over the past 3-4 years when COVID was happening, there's a buzz term that was thrown out a lot called mass formation psychosis. And I always wondered how such seemingly smart people, and this isn't all people, but there are a lot of smart people, previously smart, that were fooled by all of this, and that fell into that mass formation psychosis thinking. And I just thought it was interesting when I ran across that verse that, there might be an actual group think that is, spiritual, I guess.
Yeah, those are memes. I mean, we use memes as like jokes and stuff, but really it's memes are created and used to insert an idea into society or like popularize an idea. So that doesn't surprise me. But I think it's maybe I don't want to ruffle your feathers with different beliefs, but there are people who think that the tribulation will happen and people will be taken up to heaven, and then there'll be seven years of crazy stuff for people here. I'm of the belief that I'm not even really sure if I'm of this belief, but I just think it would make more sense that like, nah, man, Christians got to go through it. Like the 7 years might have started. Like I don't think God is going to come and take us up. I think the strong delusion is going to happen, and I think Christians will be fooled. I think people who are like with their eyes wide open, right? Maybe me too. People with their eyes wide open looking at this stuff are going to be fooled. It's going to be a strong delusion. Maybe it's like aliens. Who the hell knows what it could be? But
Project Bluebeam.
yeah, the possibilities are out there. But as far as this being the end time, like, my mother would say, like, back in the day, she was like, I thought this was the end time. And then people before them, like Nostradamus, this will be the end time and stuff like. I think today is more possible than ever because they said when Jesus comes back, everybody's going to see him, right? He's going to come from, I forget the exact scripture, but they will see him as he comes down and descends from the clouds. And does that mean everyone will look up and see him around the world or whatever? Or like I don't know, will everybody see him around the world at the same time? Like this, it's possible now. It's possible now that every person can hear the gospel of Jesus, right? Because of this. That's the only reason. So it's like, oh no, we're in it. We're in it now. Like we know what's going on across the world in a second. So it's like, yeah, it's very possible the time is now, or it's very possible that, things could just get way worse and we can't even imagine it. We'll be here for another 100 years and shit'll just get real crazy. Who knows?
Yeah, so I don't really want to debate it, but I am of the belief that it's pre-tribulation rapture. But I do want to put this out there. Something that I've found out recently is that the rapture, according to Scripture, won't happen until the Antichrist reveals himself, right? And how does he do that? Well, he brokers a deal for 7 years of peace with Israel. And then 3.5 years into that, is when all the stuff really, really kicks off. So by that, you can kind of infer that Israel is going to have to be in a position to need a deal brokered for them for 7 years of peace. So I think it's interesting. It's just another tool in your tool belt. If you're looking at this with a spiritual lens, like geopolitics, you can kind of be on the lookout for that. So, I don't know if it's true that Iran is getting ready to go nuclear or whatever, and they hate Israel and they're gonna nuke them or whatever. At that point, maybe that's when a peace deal is brokered, that sort of thing.
Maybe that's when Donald Trump comes back into the play and creates something beautiful for 3.5 years. That's been my theory. Even though I don't hate Trump. I'm not like I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I actually prefer him over whatever Joe Biden is. But if we want to talk about a great delusion, I mean, it's all set in place for like most Trump followers are Christians. They're good Christian people. It's like, man, if that guy turned out to do a little flipperoo, how many people would follow him? How many people would be confused?
Well, I was kind of watching with bated breath when he did the Abraham Accords. I thought that was very.
You thought that was it? Yeah. Yeah, it's a freaky one when you start really.
Yeah, we get in the real weeds on all that.
Pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib. Let's fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of Trump, he was indicted on Wednesday, I guess. How do y'all feel about a former president being indicted?
I think it's the most American thing you could do.
Based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, go ahead, man.
It's one of those things where it's like part of me, like I don't want to sound like a MAGA, Republican, but it's like part of me is like, this is bullshit. Like you understand the political hit job that it is, and And I also understand like the flimsy evidence or whatever the hell they're using. It's like, it's nonsense. But then the other part of me likes the precedent that's being set, kind of like what did the Democrats did a couple of years ago where they eliminated the filibuster, and then that like bited them in the ass, a little bit later on. So it's like, I kind of like that. If anybody in the right with anybody on the right with any kind of balls ever regains power, it would be interesting to see what they do. I don't think DeSantis is the guy to do that. I think Trump is the guy to. I really do hope he gets back in, because this set a very interesting precedent where it's like, okay, we're locking up our political enemies. I'm back in. I'm angry. You guys have screwed me for the last 8 years. I want to see the chaos. I want to see him go like crazy on these people. I think it'll be great. But
with nothing to lose in a 4-year term, yeah, what can happen?
The world's going to shit anyway, so it's like we might as well let's put on the greatest show that we've ever seen. So that's kind of the outcome I'm hoping for.
I'm a little torn. I'm all for setting the precedent of arresting former presidents. I don't think you should do it on bullshit charges. Charge them for war crimes or something serious like that. But I am worried that it does set the precedent that it's just going to be a continuous cycle. As soon as one gets out of power and the other comes into power, the other party, they just prosecute the last guy that was in the White House, right? That sort of thing.
That'd be so dope.
Yeah, but then who's going to want to run for president when
exactly.
they do that?
There you go. You just solved your own problem.
I guess if you're like a collapsitarian,
yeah,
that sort of thing.
It's the same thing with you could have with Trump's impeachment, right? Like it sets a precedent of keeping a president in a constant state of impeachment, right? Or investigation or whatever it might be, just to tie their hands. It just goes against every principle of the Constitution, every principle of just very, very basic American political values of like, they're throwing around the term banana republic, and you're like, damn, I mean, they're right. I hate to say it, but it's gotten to a point. Setting that precedent is so incredibly dangerous. And you're right. It's fine with war crimes or something heinous. Like, what are the two crimes the president can do that's
treason,
like impeachment worthy? Treason and
treason's one.
It's treason, and it's almost like conduct on becoming an officer, conduct on becoming of a president, or high crimes and misdemeanors. That's what it is. High crimes and misdemeanors, which whatever the hell that means.
That's intentionally ambiguous.
It's just with this one with Trump, it's so blatantly obvious that like you've been trying to get him since before he was even in office, and finally you found something that sort of sticks, but it doesn't even really stick. And it's like, this is what we're doing, guys. But like, I go for it, I guess. I'm not exactly a collapsitarian. I just see the trend. Like, this shit is going down anyway.
Yep.
So it's like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna keep patching holes, Justin Amash. You're like, there's no saving this. This is going down the way it's gonna go down. I just hope it's hilarious so I could tweet about it. But what am I gonna like again with libertarians on Twitter or whatever? You're yelling at me about gun laws. I do drawings. I'm a guy that goes by a lobster moniker, and I do drawings online. And you're yelling at me about laws. What are we doing here? Like, enjoy the show. Enjoy. Like, I don't know what to tell these people, man.
Yeah, I just I don't know. I think even people on the left know that it's a farce, and that's the interesting thing about it. They're going to go along with it, even though they know what it is.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a silly question, and I ask my libertarian friends because they're the only weirdos that would know or read it, right? Have either one of you guys ever read the Constitution all the way through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think
I haven't all the way through now.
I don't even think it's viable anymore. Like, I'll use it to argue with people when it fits me, but like, again, you see the way things are going, the way they pass laws. It's just kind of like no one's even looking at this shit. Thomas Massey's looking at it, and Rand Paul maybe. it's almost like a non-factor in today's political society. We just use these kind of tropes and nobody cares.
Throw around the amendments and things like that. Well, there's one fail-safe, and I became pretty interested in the concept of it and the traction it gained. Article 5, the Constitution,
Convention of States.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you think that is a viable option? Do you think we will soon enough come to the point where people will have had enough and say, we need to rewrite this thing?
Well, I think it's more dangerous than it is a positive thing, right? I think it can be used against you just as soon as it can be used for you.
It's a double-edged sword.
I think it's more likely that like a widespread secession happens, and what's happening in Florida, even though it's kind of like lip service by DeSantis, is a step in that direction, which is kind of scary because it could turn into like some kind of hot war. The federal government's not going to let half the country go and just dissolve their power. But like when DeSantis said that he's not going to extradite anybody over bullshit claims coming from New York, let's see how that plays out. That's like, I mean, we're going to pass constitutional carry here in Florida probably in the next couple of days. It's just it's like a slap in the face of federal, what the federal government would want to do with guns or whatever kind of weird leftist laws that, whoever they have in power right now. So yeah, I like that. I like that disrespect, especially, the whole thing with COVID, the states that decided to not lock down and to not do vax mandates and things like that. This is all these are forms of soft secession. So I think that that's more likely. How that looks, I don't even know. But like I said before, when we're talking about like federal politics, political stuff, I don't even really see America as it is now, the United States of America, lasting for 10 years. Like
Really?
the currency that look at the dollar. If that's not a sign that shit's going downhill fast, they'll try to replace it with a CBDC. They'll probably be successful for a while, but like, how long can you pull off this Ponzi scheme before everything crumbles? And like every aspect of this cathedral is just cracking and crumbling under them. And it's weird, right? It seems like they want to do this, like by dividing the nation rhetorically, by supporting a trans shooter that killed some kids. But then at the same time, it seems like they're trying to like force everybody together so that they can keep you under their rule. I don't understand what's happening, but it doesn't look sustainable in my opinion.
Man, I hate to bring it back to religion and end times again, but an interesting perspective is that the United States is not mentioned in the end times. So you kind of have to, use your reasoning and deduct why that is. Is that because we get nuked? Is that because the dollar collapses and we become a third world country? Is that because a virus runs rampant and kills a bunch of people here?
Maybe a vaccine,
civil war, vaccine. What is it? So I just think that's an interesting, subplot, I guess.
That's true. I mean, it could not be mentioned because the Western Hemisphere, I guess it didn't really exist at that time, or people didn't really know about it. So maybe if, John the Baptist was looking at this stuff, it's kind of like, who's the guy that saw, and there's like a scripture in the Bible where he talks about chariots of fire, like running through the air.
Ezekiel,
yeah. Is he describing a rocket ship of some type? They don't have the words to describe whatever they're seeing. It could be a case like that. I don't know. I'm not as well read on the subject. I really do need to do like a deeper dive on that. But
yeah, and another thing is, if the rapture happens and a bunch of Christians are taken out of the United States, there's a fair chance that the United States takes a while to learn how to operate without those people again, or it may not ever, get back on its feet after that, or civil war, that sort of thing. There's a bunch of possibilities, and it's just an interesting lens to look through.
Yeah. Or just with even just in general within the world sphere, it just doesn't have as much sway as another country does, right? It's just not as politically active. Which I don't know, man. Because you guys are talking about the economic collapse, the dollar, and at the end of the day, the U.S. economy is backed by possible violence, right? It's backed by possible aggression against every other country.
Yeah.
Pax America. And people, especially within the libertarian sphere, hate that. But there's a certain benefit about that, right? Like the 20th century, the 21st century are two of the most peaceful centuries. Even though you have two massive world wars, you have all these other small proxy wars throughout the Cold War. But you look back across history and you're like, damn, we're a lot safer now than we ever were. Even 100 years ago, we were safer than any other time in history. Is it too big to fail? Is it? I just don't know. In a nuclear world, I don't know.
Yeah, is it too big to fail? Like, does it just become something else, like a corporate? Like, I mean, I don't know. If you're of the belief that this is like a corporation, your social security number is like your barcode. Does somebody just absorb this corporation and rename it something else? Like, it is hard to believe that like I think a good example would be like maybe like something like Disney World, Disneyland, or something like that. Like, if that just ceases to exist, right? If we just did away with Disney, what happens to all the shit there? Does that just cease to exist? Does that like all rust and become an artifact? I don't think so. I think somebody uses it, like, Universal Studios picks it up or use it. You just don't let that go. The infrastructure, all the stuff in America is like not something to just throw away. It's super useful to everybody around the world. So yeah, my money would be on, my fake dollars would be on that. This just becomes something different, not like a wasteland. It just becomes some other name that we don't even know.
Or do we merge? You know that you guys watch The Office? You know that episode, The Merger?
Yeah.
Do
Well,
we
yeah.
merge, right? Can we merge our economy?
The Bible does talk about a one world government, so that could be. I mean, that is probably what's happening. It's what is the phrase that Joe Biden says about it? The liberal
Build back better. Yeah, liberal economic order.
The liberal, yeah. No, it's like the global liberal order. So I don't know if it's an economic order, but they talk about that. He like references that constantly, and it just means New World Order. They say it a whole bunch of different ways, and they've been saying it since like probably like George Bush Sr. So
Yeah, dude. That's just one of my favorite quotes. Just like the way he says it, just I don't know, kind of tickles your spine a little bit. The New World Order. First time it's said in public, you're like, oh shit.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Pay attention.
Yeah,
Conspiracy theory is real, man, and we're here telling you about it on the front lines.
Yeah, it's interesting because going back to the one world government and one world like monetary system, it's interesting watching this BRICS deal happen. So China and Brazil both decided this week that they would trade their oil in their own currency. And so if the US dollar is not backed by oil, it's not backed by anything anymore. And it's only under threat of violence that is insured, right? But we can't go to war with every BRICS country, right? So it'll be interesting to see, does the dollar die after that? And then are we forced into a CBDC currency? And if so, then just the US has that currency. So how does that become a one world currency, right? Does our economic crash affect everybody else so badly that everybody is forced into that system? I don't know. It's interesting to wait and find out.
It could. I forget the guy's name. He has a theory about the economic crash affecting like China worse than it would affect us. Like we would go through a slight deflationary period where they're more reliant on our form of our economic prowess. I guess because we're like the I'm losing my words here. Like
Premier,
what an
we're the
idiot.
premier.
Not just that, but we're the consumers of all the shit that they're selling, basically. So they would be affected. They're a third world country, a lot of their people, so I don't know. I don't know how this will play out. Clint will probably know better. He's got more idea. I pick his brain whenever I can about this kind of stuff. He's usually right.
Yeah, Zach, if you're not following and listening to him, you should pick up on it. He's a excellent
Is that the
resource and good dude.
is that the fella you had on? I think it was like your second or third episode.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, talking about ESG. Yep.
I think I even messaged you. I think that was my favorite episode so far. I need to go back and listen to it again. I was so lost in the Larry Sharp episode. The dude is just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
I
he's all
love
over
to
the
listen
place.
to it, but he's very, very fast.
Yeah, he's like that in
Yeah.
real life too. He's like
Yeah.
all over the place. But
Yeah, I
Clint,
prepared for that interview for all week long, and I had all these questions ready to go, like a whole page worth. And I think I asked about 4 or 5 because he talked about 20 minutes per question, sort of thing, which was really nice. I didn't have to talk a lot, but yeah, he can talk up a storm for sure.
So real reason libertarians aren't invited to the debate stage is they talk so fast. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's just over everybody's head.
It's not because they don't want them there. It's just they can't have them there.
yeah, you got it. Yeah, check out Clint's episode on here. I listened to that one. That one was good. Then he has his show Liberty Lockdown. Obviously, that's really good. I was on a panel with him, Jose Galasan of the No Way Jose podcast, and Clint, and I thought that episode was really good. We touched on like a lot of not this stuff obviously, but like that was when Trump was going to be indicted. So we ran the gamut on a lot of this stuff, and obviously Clint had a lot of solid takes on this, on this kind of perspective. So yeah, you guys should check him out.
I think I don't know if Casey wants to keep talking about it, but I think he and I both actually shared something today. Of course, all of my memes, all my everything is just stolen content, right? This was from Dan Crenshaw. Prove your innocence is how justice works in the Soviet gulags, not in America. And that was in response to Nancy Pelosi saying, no one is above the law and everyone has the right to a trial to prove innocence. And I was like, sheesh. Man. Like, if that doesn't tell you everything about what's taking place with this indictment.
Yeah, as ass backwards as it gets.
Yeah, there aren't any words. There aren't any words for it. You're just, oh, okay.
Exactly.
This is where we're at.
I thought about like I should say like something like snarky back here. I was like, why? Like this should be expected at this point. If anyone's surprised, you're like late to the show. This is obvious stuff. They're just like, it's just like more of a mask drop. If they could drop this mask any further.
Well, at the end of the day, and the saddest part about it is you got to ask the question, who cares? You care, Casey cares, I care. But what does the average American who's not politically charged really care? And why should they care? We've gotten to this point, right? What would change? What's going to happen? Look what's going to happen to Nancy Pelosi coming out and saying that. Nothing.
Well, I'll tell you why this is why they should care. The NPC people that aren't paying attention, they're very happy in their little bubble, playing by the rules that are given to them, because whether they admit it or not, they get their marching orders and they know not to step out of line. Some of these people are true NPCs, like can't think for themselves. Some of them are just keeping their head down, and I get that, but you're following into destruction. And what happens constantly with these kind of like perverse ideologies is once you're no longer useful, you're the first person against the wall. Then it'll be us, and then they'll go down the line, and it'll become like nobody will be able to freaking farm corn, and everybody dies anyway, or some crazy shit like that. But yeah, the ones that are going along with this stuff and pushing it, you're useful idiots. You'll be the first one. That's like the only solace that I take from this. You'll be the first one against the wall. I'm going to be laughing at you. I'll be next, but I'll be laughing at you as they execute you into holes. So if you're listening to this and you're like not awake and you think that you're just good enough to go along to get along, that's your fate. I'm right there with you, but at least I said my piece. You never said your piece.
Well, they're going to be convinced that the boxcars are a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever.
Well, all right, guys, we're coming up on a little bit over an hour and a half. So I'm going to end it there. Top, do you want to shout anything out, plug anything?
TopLobsta.com and merchengine.com. That's like gas digital stuff. We just launched that website. And go there, buy some cool shit from your favorite podcasters. And you can do the same at TopLobsta.com. Thank you.
I just got paid today. I'm about to buy a shirt. Zach, how
Nice.
about you?
I don't know. I mean, I should be sponsored by Zen because I'm an addict now. But other than that, I got nothing to plug, man.
Zach, we got to get you on the grind. Next time
We
I
gotta get
see
you on
you,
on the Twitter, dude.
I want you plugging something. You have to plug your next grift. Next time I see
I'll
you,
tell you
Zach,
what,
no
dude.
excuses.
If I get on Twitter, I'm gonna make it more toxic hellscape than it probably already is. So
Good. That's what I want.
that's the plan.
All right, guys. Well, hey, I really enjoyed this conversation. Maybe we can do it again sometime. But for now, I appreciate you guys coming on. And guys, if you are watching and you are not subscribed to the channel, please do so. Every little subscription helps. And appreciate you listening. Catch you guys on the flip.